Hi guys, I'm Calder from Calder's and welcome to the last video of my Valentine's Day special. In today's video I will be showing you how to make a heart-shaped baking form so that you can bake your own pies in your own forms, because I think that's really fun. I will also include a little recipe on the end of the video that you could follow. I just keep it short, but I thought it was fun. And you can of course also make this baking form in any other shape than a heart shape, because it basically works the same. You make the bottom in the shape that you want and then you make a ring. So without any further ado, let's get started and I'll show you how to do it. In this video I will be using this tabletop slab roller. If you don't have this, you can of course just make slabs by just rolling them out yourself. And as you can see here, I cut off some clay and I start making this a bit flatter. This makes it easier to get it through the slab roller. And I just smack it to make it a bit flatter, and I do this on top of a plaster bed. Then I place it in between two pieces of fabric and then I roll it in between the roller. And then I have this big slab with an even thickness. I also like to put a shelf on top of my table. This way I can easily move the piece and I also don't cut into my table when I'm cutting the clay. Then I take a piece of paper and I fold this in half. This way I can easily make a heart shape that is symmetrical. So I'm cutting out half of the shape of a heart, so that when I fold it open I have a whole heart. Then I place this on top of the clay and I start cutting out this shape. I'm just using a little knife and I'm holding the paper with my other hand. Then I start cutting out the sides of the piece from the same slab. If it doesn't fit in your slab, you can just make another slab. And I will be making two because the clay is not long enough to go all around the heart at once. For now I'm not measuring the length of the sides, I just make them as long as possible and later on I will be cutting them. As you can see here, I measure the height, so I make two little dots at 5 centimeters high and then I cut in between those dots. And then I cut away some excess clay at the sides that I don't need. And I get rid of all the excess clay that I'm not going to use. Then I grab one of the sides and I place this on top of the heart, and I make sure that it aligns with the side of the bottom. And then I make a little line at the part where I need to cut it, because it was a bit too long. I hold the ruler next to it and I cut it. Then I start attaching it and I first scratch the part where I'm going to attach it with this tool from Seam Tools. And then I apply some vinegar with a brush. The vinegar helps to let the clay stick. And I scratch the same parts again. Then I place the side on top of the heart and I make sure that it aligns with the side, and I smooth it out a little bit with my finger, and then I go over it with a sponge to smooth it out even more. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth because we will be smoothing it out later as well. And then I smooth out the inside. I like to do this with a brush because this way I can easily see what I'm doing, and I also smooth out these little sides on the top. And then I take the second slab, which is the other side of the heart, and I place this on top. Also make sure that it's aligned. And then I make a little line where it is too long and then I cut this off with the little knife. And then I scratch these parts again. I first scratch the bottom and I also scratch the parts of the other side because these need to be attached as well. And then I apply vinegar to all of these parts with the brush. And then I scratch it again with the same tool as before. Then I place the side on top of the scratched part and I make sure that it aligns everywhere and that the two sides attach to each other, and I give some pressure so that it gets stuck. And I again smooth out the bottom a little bit by going over it with my fingers, and then I go over it with a sponge. But as I said, it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth on the outside yet. Then I smooth out the inside again, just like I did before with the brush. I just go over it a few times so that the line goes away and it's nice and smooth and one part. And I do this on the inside and the outside, just everywhere where you have like these little lines. At the bottom of the shape, this seam was a little bit too big, so I closed this by going over it with this tool and then I smoothed it out with a sponge. And I also like to smooth out the rim. I just go over it with a wet sponge on the inside and the outside. And as you can see, I go over it quite a lot to just make it as smooth as possible, make it a little bit more round, and also make it into a fluent shape and just make it nice and smooth. And after this I let the piece dry for a day so that the clay is a bit harder and the shape can't change anymore. If you can't wait a day, you can also use a heat gun to speed up the drying process. But when you do this, make sure to dry it evenly because otherwise the clay might crack because of the shrinkage. Here I have some pictures which I found quite interesting. You can see how much the piece actually shrinks. This is just after one day of drying, and as you can see the line on the shelf is further away than the piece itself. So this is the part where the piece actually became smaller. Then I turn the piece around and I start smoothing out the sides of the bottom. The tool that I'm using here is a shredder from Mud Tools. It works great and it really helps me to make the sides a bit more round. If you don't have this tool, you could use a knife to cut away some clay or a trimming tool to just get rid of some clay, or you cannot take away any clay and just go over it with a sponge. But I do like the look of having it a bit more rounded, but it's just my own preference. And as you can see, I go over the sides with a sponge. I go over it quite a lot to get rid of any lines that were made by the shredder. And this also just smooths it out and makes it nice and round. And in this way I also got rid of the line that was still there from attaching the different parts on top of each other. And then the piece is finished and I let it dry before biscuit-fire. And after it has been biscuit-fired, I glaze it. I decided to glaze it red. I'm using the glaze Ruby Red from Bots Pro Glazes. And I'm just brushing this on the inside and the outside of the heart shape. And I'm of course not glazing the bottom because otherwise it will get stuck to the kiln shelf. And I'm applying 2 coats. It's important to let the glaze dry in between coats. If you'd like, you can use a heat gun to speed up the drying process, or just wait. And then I apply the second coat. If you're firing it to a lower temperature, I would recommend to apply 3 coats of this glaze. And as you can see, I got some glaze on the bottom, and to get rid of this I used a wet towel and just wiped it off. And as you can see, I'm taking a different part of the towel every time that I wipe some glaze away, because otherwise it just doesn't work. And by doing this I also make the line between the clay and the glaze straight, so that it looks nice and clean. And here are some pictures of the final result. And here is a fun vegan recipe that you could try in your own baking form. That was it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked and you learned something new from it. If so, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it yet. And if you're going to make these baking forms yourself and you're going to post them on Instagram, please tag me at Calder so I can see your baking forms, because I'm quite excited to see them. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!